My name is Ted Obenar, and I want to welcome you to my new show called Dementia Talks. This podcast is a companion to my website called wanderinglight.com. The name Wandering Light comes from the idea that people with dementia tend to wander, and so with tongue in cheek, I named it Wandering Light. Wandering Light has been around for the last 2 years, and we have literally hundreds of articles that can help you from a first-person point of view of living with dementia. After I was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia a year ago, last February, I of course had lots of questions. The first thing, of course, was the big questions, like how long am I going to live? What's my life expectancy? What stage am I in? All of the normal things that a person who hears that they have dementia would normally ask. But unfortunately, the more I dug into looking for the answers, and not to say that my doctors at Cleveland didn't give me a great opportunity to ask questions, because they really did. I not only was able to ask the questions when I was visiting, but I was able to submit my series of questions that I came up with afterwards, and they were great about getting back to me with those questions or with those answers. But I still needed to learn more. The more I dug, the more I found that the information out there is available mainly from a clinical or from a caregiver point of view. Not to say that's not valuable, but if you have dementia, it really doesn't answer your questions. So I kept digging, and unfortunately, what happened to me was probably what happens to a lot of people who are diagnosed with dementia. I fell into a deep depression. The more I learned, the deeper my depression became. Fortunately, I'm trained as a Stephen minister, and as a Stephen minister, I've been trained in the grieving process. Through that process, I realized that I was, in fact, not grieving for a death, but I was grieving for the death or loss of what my life was as I thought it could be, what my future was, how long I was going to live, all those things which we all build as expectations to ourselves, but probably don't admit it to ourselves. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to know what was wrong with me. I cannot count the number of times we made trips to Cleveland Clinic. But fortunately, knowing what I was dealing with quickly put me in touch what I had lost. Yes, I was going through a grieving process, but I am a person who needs to know the answers, so I continued to do my research. And I refused to let the disease define who I was in my remaining years, and I choose to live positively day to day. That part of me, the disease cannot rob. Fortunately, through a series of events and friends, I have been connected with people who understand what it's like to live with Lewy body dementia or with dementia. And there are so many different kinds. I don't want to say just Lewy body, because dementia is a very broad spectrum. Actually, dementia is the broad spectrum, which underneath it is Alzheimer's and forms of dementia. Alzheimer's is different than dementia. Dementia is a loss of cognitive memory, whereas Alzheimer's is different than that. But nonetheless, dementia can be caused by, in my case, Lewy body dementia can be caused by vascular disease of the brain. It can be caused by so many other different types of diseases that affect our mental capacity. But through many connections, I have learned that sharing these challenges and sharing these understandings is critically important. I've learned that sharing coping mechanisms, that sharing, having just a shared experience is critically important. And unfortunately, there are very little sites or very little information that really helps us do that. And I keep coming back to that, but it just that big thing that struck me as I did my research. I'm sure if you've done your research, you may have come to the same conclusion. There are some major roadblocks also on the way to doing this. First of all, dementia in and of itself has a huge stigma attached with it. So people don't want to talk about it. People constantly tell me, you're very brave to admit that you have dementia. I don't think it's about being brave. I think it's about actually, I feel a calling to share with people. But that's the first challenge. The second challenge is many people are diagnosed with dementia way too late. I think this goes back to the stigma. Our standard thought of people who have dementia are old people in nursing homes, what have you, in wheelchairs, and we think of them as having dementia. And they may or may not, but that's not dementia as it's really that we're really talking about. All of us have brains that age over time. But the real problem is that if you're not diagnosed early, you're going to deny yourself not only the things that can help you live better, right, with medications and other mechanisms, but you also are denying your family the opportunity to prepare and for you to prepare, right? So early diagnosis is absolutely critical, but most people, because they don't admit it, don't get it. Third is there's not a site for people to connect with, right? So if you think you have it or if you need to ask questions, where do you go, right? You go to your doctor and say, I'm having a problem with my cognitive memory, and they give you this standardized test, in which all of us struggle with. What were the 3 fruits that we told you at the beginning of the whatever, right? I mean, that is the worst thing that's out there. It has very little real scientific basis in terms of understanding if you have dementia or not. And then last is this lack of information that's available, right? That really speaks to you. And I keep harping on that, but it's only because it's hit me and others so hard that that want and need information about how to deal with this terrible disease. On Wandering Light, I have literally written over 100 articles about things about how to deal with dementia after you're first diagnosed, coping mechanisms, how to live positively day to day, etc. And we obviously want to share those. And this show is geared towards doing just that, as well as the podcast, because we want to reach out to as many people as possible. In this show, particularly on the podcast, because it's hard to get multiple people. I'm not a professional at, obviously, at broadcasting to get multiple people involved. Maybe over time we'll be able to do that. But certainly on Dementia Talks, we're going to interview many people around that are experts not only in the field, but people who have dementia. We're going to talk to people that help support people with dementia, like Tifa Snow and her organization, and other universities that are doing studies on how dementia has affected people, what have you. We're going to look for key people throughout the field, but always with the focus of understanding it from a first-person point of view. Um, so also to point out, we will have interviews with myself and my wife. I think it's important that you see not only my experience as a person with dementia, but also my wife's experience of dealing with me as a person with dementia and what it's like to be a caregiver living with somebody trying to live positively with dementia on a day-to-day basis. So the underlying thought for Dementia Talks is that you can live positively with dementia. Early diagnosis is in fact not a curse, but a benefit. And we want you to listen, to think about what you're learning, ask questions, share those questions both on Wandering Light. We'll do our best to answer all those questions on Wandering Light. The more important questions we'll bring back out either on the YouTube channel or on Dementia Talks. And so we hope you'll tune into those to get that information back. And of course, we hope that you'll enjoy this show. We hope that you will enjoy and find it informative. We want you to share it. We want you to bring in other people into the conversations. And of course, we want you to share it, more importantly, also with your healthcare providers. We believe that that's a critical point of helping our doctors get information to people, not from a clinical point of view and not from their point of view, but from a person who really has dementia and what it's like to live with dementia. Again, remember, I can only do this as long as I'm capable. At some point in time, this show is going to end, right? It will not be possible for me to either do the website, the podcast, or the YouTube channel. But until that time, we're going to keep broadcasting. We're going to keep giving. If anybody, my friends who know me, know that I am a very determined person. I don't give up, and we won't give up on you. So here we go. We have a few episodes in the can for our podcast, and of course, as I mentioned, there are lots of information on Wandering Light, and that's L-I-T-E, by the way. Sorry, Wandering Light, L-I-T-E. This is Ted signing off, and I hope you have a very positive day. Goodbye.